Good evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. The Transport Ministry has not yet received any feedback from the export-import industry warning about the rising costs of shipping due to the Red Sea conflict. Its Minister Anthony Loh said despite that, the ministry will continue to monitor the situation, adding that it is still manageable for the time being.
He said that talks with industry players will be done from time to time for mitigation efforts. Earlier, Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers had warned Malaysian exporters and importers that freight rates are likely to triple in 2024 compared to 2023 due to the Red Sea shipping crisis. The crisis erupted after Yemenis Houthis began targeting Israeli-linked vessels in retaliation to the war in Gaza, with the US and UK fighting back with repeated airstrikes, causing disruption to the global supply chains.
The blown-off door plug from an Alaska Airlines flight, which was manufactured in Malaysia, had received approval from the US Federal Aviation Authority, FAA, says Transport Minister Anthony Loh. He says that the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, CAAM, has offered to render any assistance to the FAA if there is a request. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, NSTB, confirmed that the door plug was manufactured by Spirit Aerosystems in Malaysia before reaching Boeing's supplier in Wichita, Kansas. NSTB chairperson Jennifer Homendy said there is no confirmation on whether manufacturing was at fault, adding that an investigation will also delve into the door plug's production, transport, installation and entry into service, as well as quality checks along the way. On January 5th, the door plug on the Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft serving the Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 blew out as it took off from Portland International Airport. Students will be allowed to wear school uniforms for only 2 days a week for the next school term. Education Minister Farhana Sheikh says changes to the school uniform guideline were made following discussions with various stakeholders.
Untuk pakaian seragam sekolah 2024-2025 ini diteruskan seperti berikut. 2 hari pakaian seragam, 2 hari pakaian sukan dan 1 hari pakaian co-curriculum.
Farhana said a circular with more details would be issued soon. On May 3rd last year, the Education Ministry allowed students to wear sportswear to avoid health complications due to the hot weather. We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Mengumumkan tawaran kencang untuk mak, ayah, ada maklum dan ramai lagi. Tawaran istimewa untuk pelanggan Astro yang setia. Dapatkan 500 Mbps hanya RM90 sebulan. Dengan router Wi-Fi 6 yang pantas. Dapatkan Astro Fiber 500 Mbps hanya RM90 sebulan hari ini.
Welcome back. In light of increasing impacts from global warming and climate change, Professor Martin Siegert urges for no more delay in research into the Antarctic ice sheet that covers the largely unknown continent before the planet runs out of time.
Sea level rise is going to happen. The minimum that we'll see in this century is going to be about 0.5 metre. So between now and 2100, there'll be another 50 centimetres of sea level rise, and that's the least we'll get away with. But it's possible under an extreme scenario where we continually burn fossil fuels and the climate warms even further, that we would see maybe 1 metre, maybe 2 metre. It's not impossible for there to be 3 metres of sea level rise in this century. And of course, in 2100, it doesn't stop at 2100. It just keeps going. It's a pretty arbitrary number, actually, at the end of this century. By 2150, it's possible we might see 5 metres under an extreme situation. And that will be a catastrophe for many low-lying nations, especially in the Pacific, but around the world. A lot of our ports and cities and infrastructures will be inundated with water under that scenario. And it's not, this will be everywhere on the planet. So it's a profound issue. And it's possible And what we need to do to understand that better is to properly explore and survey the Antarctic continent.
According to CIGIT, more research into what lies beneath the ice in Antarctica will better assist scientists in predicting what will happen to the Earth in the near future.
And the reason to do that is because we rely on computer models to predict our future. And it doesn't matter how sophisticated the computer models are, if the basic information that's feeding them is suboptimal, not good enough, then the results won't be good enough either. And that's the situation we find in Antarctica. You know, we've got an urgent need to better understand our future in terms of sea level rise, but we've got a basic problem in that we don't understand the shape and formation of the Antarctic continent, what's underneath the ice, and we urgently need to do that.
Now that the 5-day World Economic Forum has come to a close, let's hear from Niaga AWANI editor Najib Arif, who is right now in Davos, Switzerland for the final day outlook.
Geopolitical and economic issues took a center stage for the last day of World Economic Forum 2024 right here in Davos, Switzerland. And of course, one of the sessions this morning attended by Jane Harman, the former congresswoman from United States. And of course, the focus would be on how the relationship between China and the US. And she says that both parties, Democratic and also Republican, have some internal issues and also fractions in terms of supporting trade. Some quarters in Republican and also in Democratic parties are pro-trade and some are not. And also, for example, she says that when US pulled out from the TPP, this gives a vacuum for China to play a greater role in that sense. And of course, in the case of Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF, has also facing some hurdles from within the parties itself. And in the context of US and China relations, she says that it's really a multi-dimensional approach and relationship between US and China. And she says that three fronts of the Biden's administration approach in regards to the US and China relationship, which is the first one is confrontation, second one is competition, and the third one is cooperation. And of course, different issues fall in different buckets of these three. And not just that, the European Union and also European as a whole are facing difficulties in the fraction world right now. And Maris Sefcovic, for instance, European Commission Vice President, says that Europe is going through painful acceptance that we are living in a tough geopolitical world where everything can be weaponized, from data to medicine to critical raw materials, and also from others, from free trade as well. So joining me is the editor-in-chief of Astro, Astro Ismail, who attended the session this morning. It's very tense discussion.
Indeed, it is very interesting because all these years, I think the global players kind of try to find gearing on how to dissect or how to decouple problems and how to engage with that problems. But this time around, the key word here, or in the world of social media, is the hashtag is definitely co-opetition. So competition and cooperation. So co-opetition is the key word moving forward. But the question here is that I would like to tie back to the theme of Davos 24 this time around is rebuilding trust, in which the question here is whether we want to build trust or we want to manage distrust better. So this is interesting because at the end of the day, the point from this discussion, 45 minutes discussion, indeed concentrated on economic perspective, but bigger picture here, if you tie it back to what people on the ground are feeling at this point in time, is about inflation. So if you tie that back with rebuilding trust, so the question here is, how are we going to build trust while the distrust between the global north and the global south is definitely widening? And question here, when it comes to the economic and inflation, and the biggest threat to the developing nations like Malaysia is definitely the US interest rate.
Let's listen to the Vice President of European Commission.
So therefore now we have very intense dialogue with our American partners. We are looking for the ways how to overcome this, and therefore I'm coming with these proposals. Let's build bridges. Let's look how we can synergize, because if we create the European, American, Japan, South Korean market for the green tech or clean tech, clearly it would stand the global standards. It would bring the economy to the scales, which would be enormous. It would be fantastic, not only for our economies, but we can share it with the developing world. I mean, all of us been in COP, I presume, and you saw what kind of thirst there is in Africa and Latin American countries for photovoltaic panels, for digital substations, for electrifying this industry. They want to leap over our industrial fossil age, but we need to scale up in a way that we can actually share these technologies with these countries as well.
So based on that particular significant point is that we have to find a bridger in geopolitical economy landscape. So that's one, and I think it is important to actually look deeper into what are the areas that we can actually ride on and find the common ground. For example, sustainability and AI. I think that's the takeaway point from that conversation.
Yeah. And one of the interesting sessions, and then the closing sessions, I would say, is the economic outlook of 2024, which the panelists are Mr. Thurman, from the President of Singapore, and also we have Christine Lagarde from European Central Bank. And this is very interesting because they touch about the green financing and also some of the topics about fiscal policy. And this is very close to our heart in Malaysia, because we are in the midst of restructuring our fiscal policy in terms of our subsidies and all that. So you attended the session, and how do you see the conversation going in terms of the world leaders focusing on this area?
I think before we go deeper into that, I think the voice from Southeast Asia is significantly important in this conversation. If not, it definitely will be focusing pretty much on the global north, in this case European and also the American. And what the President of Singapore pointed out clearly, that we have to look into the most neglected area, which is the fiscal reform. Okay, let's hear from the President of Singapore. That is super important, and it was applauded by the crowd.
Solution, and we can't keep ducking it. Second, there's a huge opportunity of redirecting subsidies. The IMF has estimated that about $1.3 trillion is spent each year in fuel subsidies. That's about 5 times more the amount of subsidies that goes into green technologies and green energy. We've got to redirect it. Redirect those fuel subsidies to helping vulnerable households, to helping firms to adjust, and to spurring renewables and other green technologies. That's a major redirection. It's fair, it's sustainable, and it's realistic. It has to be achieved. The third issue that's maybe the most neglected is preparing for an aging society with confidence. And it means rejigging in significant ways of social security systems and healthcare financing systems.
Of course, there are a lot of sessions in World Economic Forum that we have covered and we haven't covered actually, but we're gonna cover throughout next week. But we're gonna do a special episode of Niaga AWANI, Decoding World Economic Forum, where we are gonna see the whole situation, the whole picture, post all the discussions that's happening right here on the green
Definitely,
financing.
we have to break down by the pillars, especially on AI, middle powers, sustainability, and definitely on a geopolitical, what to expect, geopolitical economy, what to expect in 2024.
All right, that's going to be next week. Stay tuned with Astro AWANI. That's all the reporting for this week from World Economic Forum 2024. I'm Najib Arif and Ashwa Ismail. Sign out for Astro AWANI.
That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.